for joining us. We have new details tonight about that Toronto area man facing terror charges for allegedly planning to carry out a mass shooting at a Jewish center in New York City. Ithel Musil has the latest.
As a small Quebec town wrestles with the arrest of a man accused of plotting an ISIS-inspired terror attack, security experts are warning.
It's a call to action for all our law enforcement and intelligence organizations and everybody to remember this is an ongoing problem because the world has not been able to deal with the underlying issues that motivate individuals like this one.
On Wednesday, the RCMP arrested a 20-year-old Pakistani national in Ormstown, Quebec, about 20 kilometers away from the U.S. border. According to a statement issued by U.S. Attorney General Merrick B. Garland, Mohammed Shazeb Khan is alleged to have planned a terrorist attack in New York City around October 7th, the first anniversary of Hamas's deadly assault on Israel, with the goal of killing as many Jewish people as possible in the name of ISIS. U.S. officials say Khan, who was living in Canada, had been under surveillance for 9 months.
I would argue that CSIS and the RCMP, perhaps the CBSA and other organizations, they probably don't have enough resources because these kinds of issues are arising around the world and they're complicated by the fact that they now have access to cyber tools.
According to a criminal complaint filed by the U.S. Justice Department, Khan used an encrypted messaging app to discuss his support for ISIS.
Canada needs to take this seriously, and we need to think about the domestic resources. Like, how do we staff our police agencies? Do we need a modern FBI? Because they were using encrypted communications, right? They were using social media. Like, this is not your grandfather's terrorism. This is a new brand of terrorism.
Khan is facing 3 charges in Canada, including attempting to leave Canada to commit an offense for a terrorist group. U.S. officials have also charged him with attempting to provide material support and resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization. Ithel Musil, CBC News, Toronto.
Also developing tonight, Toronto police releasing new video from a murder investigation. It happened back on August 27th around midnight. A 21-year-old man was shot and killed. Here's what police are now saying, and some of that new video from the moment it happened.
The suspect driver remained in the driver's seat as 2 shooters exited the vehicle and fired numerous rounds indiscriminately in the direction of the far parking lot in the east end of the plaza. This lot is approximately 100 meters away from where the shooters were, and numerous people were in the lot at that time. The plaza goers scrambled to take cover, and several vehicles and businesses were struck by the gunfire.
So here's more of that new video just released from police showing the suspect vehicle pull over, 2 shooters exiting the car and later getting back in the car as it drives away. Police say that suspect vehicle is a white Toyota RAV4 with a black roof and tinted windows. They're looking for witnesses and dash cam footage. The victim is being identified tonight as Arslan Ahmed of Brampton. First responders found him inside a business with gunshot wounds. He was later taken to hospital where he died. The cycling community coming together to honor another life lost on Toronto streets. The young woman was hit by a vehicle and later died in hospital. As Nama Weingarten shows us, advocates say her death is a painful reminder that more needs to be done to protect cyclists.
You never ride alone!
Dozens of cyclists came together with a white ghost bike in hand, meant to be left at the scenes of collisions where cyclists are seriously injured or killed. They rode to Etobicoke, where a 26-year-old cyclist was fatally struck on August 24th and died in hospital a week later.
It's a gut punch because it's all needless. Every single one of these crashes, these deaths, did not need to happen.
It's important to show solidarity for the family, a public grieving of this tragedy.
The woman was hit as she was riding her bike, heading west on Burnham Thorpe Road in the area of Kipling Avenue. That's when a 28-year-old man driving a Volkswagen Jetta struck her while heading in the same direction. She's the 6th cyclist to die on Toronto's streets this year, the highest number, at least in the past 5 years. That's after one cyclist was killed in all of 2023.
How many more events like these do we have to attend? And this has been quite a few.
The city has done a lot of work in the past few years to improve cycling infrastructure, adding more protected intersections and bike lanes. But cyclists and advocates say that as deaths continue to climb, these changes are not happening fast enough.
The dangers within the city due to neglect of a safe and extensive and connected infrastructure is why we continue to have these memorial rides for people who should still be out there with their friends and family enjoying life.
We've worked for many years now to try to get the Bloor bike lane, for example, extended into Etobicoke. So it's another urgent call to the city to redouble its efforts to catch up to make our roads safe.
Local city councillor Amber Morley was also there, saying it's not so easy to get community members in Etobicoke to agree on new cycling infrastructure.
It's been a contentious issue. We've heard from folks all the way up to the Premier's office about why they don't appreciate or want to see this kind of infrastructure on our streets. And for me, gatherings like today and tragedies like the one we're here to acknowledge are the rationale and justification for why this kind of infrastructure is critically important. It could have been our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our aunts, our wives, our husbands. It could have been any of us.
Police say that since the deadly collision, the driver has been charged with careless driving causing death or bodily harm. Nama Weingarten, CBC News, Toronto.
Meantime, 2 pedestrians are in hospital fighting for their lives after 2 separate collisions last night in Mississauga and Brampton, and that's prompted this message from police.
We want to avoid, if possible, that type of incident. So you as a pedestrian, I encourage you, please do not jaywalk, cross at an intersection when it's safe to do so, or crosswalk. Please make sure you're not walking and texting in the sense of how many videos have we seen where people are not paying attention and they walk into a pole because they're looking at their phone.
Police suggest if you're out for a walk, try to wear light colors or reflective clothing. For drivers, watch for people crossing the road at intersections or in the middle of the street, plus stay focused. Avoid driving distracted or impaired. The first human case of rabies in our province since 1967 is being reported. The Brant County Health Unit saying a person is in hospital with the virus. The suspected exposure came from a bat just north of Sudbury.
Rabies in humans is extremely rare. In fact, there's been 26 documented cases in Canada since it was first tracked in 1924. This is the first case of documented rabies in Brantford Brant. It is an exceedingly rare occurrence.
So a reminder, if anyone comes into contact with an animal that's known to carry rabies, and if they're scratched or bitten, the health unit says immediately wash the wound with soap and water and get medical attention. We have Ward Anderson joining us tonight. It was beautifully warm all week, but today it sure feels like fall out there, Ward.
Yes, it has been feeling like fall, and it's going to continue that way for a couple of days, but don't rule out summer just yet. As we go into the evening, you can see 10 degrees in Toronto, much cooler than we're used to this time of year, but the lakes are actually quite warm. They're still doing pretty well, sitting around 20 degrees each of them. Well, that blustery wind that we've been feeling and that warm lake water is bringing with it some unsettled weather to the area. We have this retrograde system that's bringing unsettled weather to northern and eastern parts of the province, especially as we get over into our nation's capital. But right there off the lake, we have this lake effect rain, these lake effect showers coming through that are going to affect cottage country and around the GTA as we go into the end of the weekend. So we're not talking about a washout, looking at 10 to 20 millimeters in the highest affected areas, the most affected areas. But tomorrow it's still going to continue to be cool, up to almost 10 degrees cooler than we're used to this time of year. But like I said, don't rule summer out yet. Warmer temperatures coming next week, hot temperatures.
Wow, 32, I see. We'll talk to you more about that a little later on the show. Thanks, Ward.
You got it.
Welcome back to Toronto, Jennifer.
That's J-Lo kicking off the first big weekend of TIFF. She's one of dozens of Hollywood celebs touching down in Toronto for the festival. This is the 49th edition, 11 days jam-packed with Canadian and international cinema. Fans get to get up close with their favorite stars, and it's also a chance for the actors to have a little fun on the red carpet.
I am a repeat. You know, they should give you jackets.
You keep going. What keeps you going?
Cocaine. Oh, sorry, I'm going over here.
You've played musicians. You've played superheroes. A Weetabix salesman. Talk to me about relishing the relative normality of that kind of role.
Yeah, I wanted to play someone sexy finally. I wanted to play like a like a symbol of sex.
Excellent.
And I found that character.
Hi, Ben. Welcome back to TIFF.
How are you?
Tell us, you haven't been in a starring role in several years. You've been directing projects. What was it about this script that made you go, I need to be part of this?
It's about these 4 kids, and I know these kids, and they live on this farm in Ohio, and they've never acted before, and I think this could be really fun and crazy, and I'm going to shoot it with one camera on film and kind of make an homage to a lot of the movies that I loved growing up, that that we both love, these sort of like family comedies that aren't cynical. And I was like, when I read it, I was like, wow, this really isn't cynical. This is really like heartfelt.
The fun continuing tonight. The red carpet for On Swift Horses is underway at the Princess of Wales Theatre. That's where we find CBC entertainment reporter Jackson Weaver. Tons of star power there tonight, Jackson, and I know you just had a bunch of stars come through on the red carpet that you talked to.
Yeah, as we mentioned, this is the world premiere of On Swift Horses, and we had some of the big names attached to this film just walk through, including Jacob Elordi, Daisy Edgar Jones, some journalists, myself included, scrambling to talk to them. But another person we got to talk to was Will Poulter. You might know him from We're the Millers fame, or even more recently, Marvel fame. Now, he spoke about how much it meant to be at this festival, the People's Festival, Toronto International Film Festival. Take a listen to what he said.
People are so nice and so positive out there, and like genuinely been so kind of receptive of both the movie and all of us being here, so I think we're very grateful.
And Jackson, the festival has faced a lot of challenges over the last couple of years. Does this year's festival feel a little different? Is this TIFF's comeback?
I mean, absolutely. If you wind the clock back just 4 years, there was a little thing called the pandemic just starting out. All of the in-person events here at the festival were canceled. 2021 was a hybrid festival. Again, very few stars or almost no stars. 2022 was supposed to be back, and then unfortunately, Queen Elizabeth's death was announced on the very first day of the festival, taking away eyes, taking away journalists, taking away attention. Last year, things were supposed to be back finally, and then the Hollywood strikes came around, keeping, again, almost every single star out of the city. Now, this is supposed to be the year when they return. As I mentioned, we saw some here already, and that's what this festival is supposed to do. It's not only get us, journalists here, but the real people who love the film, love the stars, love the filmmakers. And we got to talk to the director of this film about what it meant to be here, not only in Toronto, but among the clamoring fans. Take a listen to what he said.
I've always dreamed of coming to TIFF with a film, so in that regard, I've been to films by friends that have premiered here, and it was always just my favorite festival that I attended. The camaraderie. I have director friends who are in town, and we're going to see each other. I just think it's a great vibe.
Now, we've already seen that camaraderie. We've seen fans screaming for Jacob Elordi, of course. One thing that this festival is a little dark on is the ticket prices. They're on average about $30, but for the more ones in demand, getting to the hundreds of dollars. Now, there still is excitement, there still is joy, but where TIFF ends up a few years from now, nobody knows.
Yeah, we'll all be watching. We hope you have fun out there tonight. Thanks so much, Jackson. A show of force today in the fight against cancer at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center's annual walk.
For our walk today, we have people from every single province participating, 5 states, and in fact, we have somebody who came from Bondi Beach, Australia, and 2 people from the Netherlands. So it's truly a global effort to conquer cancer, and our participant base here today demonstrates that.
I have 2 little girls, daughters, and I'm very hopeful for their future that we'll have much better treatments and screening options for them, and this is one of the ways to get there.
The 21-kilometer route was a heart-shaped loop through Toronto with a stop at Princess Margaret along the way. This year's event raised more than $3.5 million, money to help support more than 1,600 researchers and regional hospitals that are part of the network across the country. We're heading into a quick break. We're back with you in 3 minutes. Looking at some international stories now, Lebanon says an Israeli airstrike has killed 3 paramedics amid Israel's ongoing clashes with Hezbollah, and it's accusing Israel of targeting them. It comes as the Gaza crisis enters its 12th month. In Gaza today, officials say Israeli strikes killed 28 people. They say 2 schools sheltering displaced people were among the targets. Israel says both compounds were serving as Hamas command centers. Gaza officials say the total number killed since October is now approaching 41,000. The UN is urging a full investigation into the death of a Turkish-American protester in the West Bank. Local media says the 26-year-old was attending a protest against Israeli settlement expansion and was shot by Israeli forces. Israel says it is looking into the report. Today's UN statement says civilians must be protected. The U.S. is also calling for an investigation. The woman's family wants the U.S. to do its own independent inquiry. It's being hailed as a historic meeting between 2 top Western spy chiefs. Heads of the CIA and the UK's MI6 met in public for the first time with a focus on Gaza and Ukraine. Chris Reyes has more.
This piece of drone debris landed just outside Ukraine's parliament after the country's defense system fought off another wide-scale attack from Russia. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, 58 of 67 drones were shot down that targeted multiple locations, including Kyiv. The attack comes just days after a Russian airstrike killed at least 50 people earlier this week in central Ukraine, and Russian bombardment has been intensifying in recent weeks. At this funeral, mourners grieve their lost loved ones. We are losing people who are worthy of living in the Ukraine we want. They are the Ukraine we want to see, she said. Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelensky has been on the diplomatic offensive, meeting with his Western counterparts, asking for more military assistance. Today, he sat down with Italy and the Netherlands.
First, let me say that I'm representing not the government, but the biggest party in the Dutch parliament. A lot of support for Ukraine and for your fight.
On Friday, Zelensky was in Germany meeting with other leaders, including U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who announced another security assistance package worth $250 million for Ukraine, but did not approve requests for long-range missiles. At a London stage, another kind of support, a moral boost from the heads of the U.S. and U.K. national security agencies. The CIA's Bill Burns praised the country's recent move into Russia.
The Kursk offensive is a significant tactical achievement. It's not only been a boost in Ukrainian morale, it has exposed some of the vulnerabilities of Putin's Russia and of his military.
The joint appearance is a rare one that could be signaling a message, says a former security officer.
And I think the message was, if Putin thinks that the United States and the UK are going to tire of his war with Ukraine, or that we're going to back off of it, that they're just simply mistaken. That's not going to happen.
Later this month, Zelensky is expected in New York for the UN General Assembly, joining world leaders for the annual summit. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Ward is back talking about some temperatures spiking back above the 30s.
Yeah, it's not going to happen for a few days. Won't even happen until later in the week for much of southern Ontario. But right now, as we go into the evening, going into the overnight, again, as you know, it's been blustery out there and it's been cooler than normal, almost as much as 10 degrees cooler than normal in some places. We have this retrograde system that has all this unsettled weather in northern and eastern parts of Ontario and into Quebec. But that warm lake water and those cool winds are bringing us this lake effect showers. These lake effect showers, lake effect rain, that'll continue throughout Sunday in cottage country especially, and further down into and around the GTA, but not quite as much. Most of the rain you can see up closer to Timmins, 10 to 20 millimeters in the northern parts, and then maybe 15 over closer to our nation's capital. Not a lot within the GTA. Cooler temperatures tomorrow. It's going to stay pretty cool all across the province, except when you get into northern Ontario, where the heat's already going to start coming through. You see that with Thunder Bay. They're going to continue to have this summer-like weather all week long, but it's going to take a little bit longer for it to make its way through the rest of the province. But summertime is still here, and you're going to see that this week.
Lovely. We'll enjoy it. Thanks so much, Ward. That's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We leave you now with some sights and sounds from the annual air show in Gatineau, Ottawa. There were high-speed performances and flyovers featuring historic military aircraft. All the fun continues through Sunday. We'll see you again tomorrow night at 11.